Hi everyone, welcome to Rendering Teardown section. Today we're gonna have a look at this really cool exterior nighttime rendering. We can see that first, in terms of it's really interesting image. Not the most conventional, which is actually a good thing, of course. Well, not of course, but can be a good thing. We'll talk a little bit about composition, natural lighting, and artificial lighting, basically. Kind of bit of horizon line and cutouts, but it's going to be pretty quick. So first things first, composition. As I said, in terms of composition, it is a quite unusual way of framing a building, but usually I'm not a huge fan when there's when there's a lack of foreground so that you can't really anchor your building. But in this case, it is actually working not that bad because we also have the background here that is the skyline or skyline or whatever of the nearby town or city, whatever. And there's actually a pretty interesting dynamic because it sort of leads to that area. It could be potentially interesting to add a little bit of extra on the right side, but I think it's actually okay to have kind of a close-up view. So yeah, that's pretty good. In terms of lighting, or in terms of composition still, there's something that is a little bit problematic though, is that if we draw the horizon line here, you can see that basically our horizon sits here, whereas the horizon of the actual rendering sits here. And the problem is, it's not a problem if there's a slight offset between your building and the existing horizon. The problem is it has to make sense. And here, basically the idea is that you are on the top of a hill or something like that, and you have a view on over the city here, which means that your horizon line should be either at the same level as the city or a little bit higher. Here, it's actually quite further down, which is not a good thing. If we take a really famous photo as a reference, you can see that here the horizon line is at this level, whereas the horizon line of the building is a little bit up. So about 5 millimeters or something like that. Because since it's toward the infinity, difference is basically 0, but you can still have a slight offset if you want. Anyway, the idea here is that you can't and that's the problem with the image actually, is that the actual skyline should be around here or a little bit below. And in terms of composition, you can see it would be really much less interesting. So what you should do, well, you have to find the right balance between the height of your image, because here you can see we're definitely not at eye level, which is kind of unconventional too, but it's not necessarily a problem. But you have to sort of find the right balance so that this discrepancy is a little bit less, because otherwise it won't be believable. The thing is, and that's not completely a disaster of course, is that since the crop, the framing is quite close, it doesn't strike you that well, actually it does. Because you can see that here you have a straight line and you can see that this is going down. So it won't strike the eye of most of your viewers, but it will strike the eyes of any people who actually understands how perspective works. So be a little bit careful with that. What you can do is just lower that, use a little bit of fog, and find an in-between that suits you. But this is not really physically accurate. Anyway, This was the composition thing. Regarding natural light now, we can have, there's something regarding lighting, whoops, not that. That is, in terms of natural light, we have a dusky nighttime or golden hours rendering. It's a little bit after golden hours actually. The thing is, there's something a little bit weird with the fact that we have the pink sky here, and all of a sudden it goes that way here, and we don't really know why. And I'm not sure this, like, basically the green, not green, pink thing is not going to happen like that. I think, as you can see here, we have like different hues depending on the altitude of the clouds. So I'm not sure this really makes sense physically. And the thing is, so this is a bit weird, like this is happening because we can see this here. And anyway, I think it catch a little bit too much the attention. As you can see, when you look at it in black and white, it looks okay. Like you have a dark area here, and you this sort of you have a nice contrast between the sky and your building, so you actually read really well the geometry of the building, which is a good thing. But once you put it in color, you can see there are too many things happening. And the thing is, it's actually a little bit too much because we already have quite a bit of information inside a building with the artificial lighting. So what I would suggest is to actually get rid of the blue sky here, the green sky, well, pink sky, sorry. And make something a little bit more simple. Something like that. As you can see, the difference is quite big, and still you get the like the project is still like the center of attention, which is a good thing. We also want, if we look at it, like there's a couple of things. I've added a little bit of blue. So it's a photo filter that like cooling photo. As you can see, I'm not putting it on the glazing, just on the left side here, that is in the shadow, and in the back, in the foreground here, and a little bit in the sun. Saturation as well has been lowered a little in the overall image because it's a little bit too saturated. Well, I could actually bump it up a little bit, but so this was regarding natural lighting. In terms of artificial lighting, there are some interesting stuff. As you can see, when you look at the image like that, it really looks pretty good. Like I really like the contrast between the dark concrete here and the really brightly lit inside, plus the cast shadows on the outside. And here you can see there are some really cool details in the light. The thing is, I'm not a huge fan of the glare thing. That is basically when you use this kind of thing here, or like you have I really like the bloom effect that we have here, because it's not subtle, but it's still like, it's quite subtle. It sort of eats a little bit the side here, and it's sort of it doesn't catch the eye too much. But when it comes to really bright stars like that, I find it a little bit too much. If you stay like, if you only use real little stuff like that, it's okay. But big bright stars like that, they really catches the eye. And even though they, like, optically they can be sort of okay and like it can happen, it's still a little bit too much, and I would try to downsize them a little. In terms of lighting as well, what is potentially interesting is to also, like, you know, have a little bit of variation in the hue of your building. Basically, the idea is that the temperature in the hole here could be different from the temperature in this part of the building. So what you do is you just use a slight variation in the hue and saturation and put it in the area you want. So the idea is that maybe it could be, I'm not saying it should be purple or yellow or whatever, but it could be slightly different from what's happening in the other area. Another thing, I think I'm gonna finish with that, is still regarding the flares. You can see also this is a little bit too much. I don't know, just try to not, basically flares are supposed to be extremely, not flare, yeah, flares in bloom and whatever, are supposed to be extremely subtle so that they don't really catches the eye. And if you enhance them a little bit too much, you actually start to feel like you're not like dizzy, but it doesn't feel natural, and it's not pleasing to the eye to have like glares everywhere that sort of catches your eye and you don't really know what you're looking at. So be careful with that. Final thing, the little cutout here, it's kind of a shame because he's the only guy in the image, and the integration is not really good because, as you can see here, this is our horizon line. This is the horizon line of the dude, which is like even lower. So be careful when you integrate people to sort of integrate that properly. It's a little bit harder because here, in terms of perspective, it is we're a little bit higher than the ground, so it's a bit problematic. And also, I'm not sure the size is okay considering the size of the door here, but I might be wrong. What I would suggest actually, since two things, like I'm not a huge fan of the positioning someone here, so I would basically get rid of this guy. And I think it could be interesting to have, since this car seems to be turned on, is to actually maybe switch on the light inside the car, like open one of the door and have like one guy inside and one guy outside, so like as if someone was dropping off someone or giving a lift to someone, I don't know, but like something happening here is actually a little bit more, like makes a little bit more sense to me than something happening in the dark on the left side of the image, because here you have like a better ratio and relation between the actual building and something's happening in front of it, whereas here I understand that the idea is to show that maybe someone's got out of this alley here, but I don't think it's that convincing. And having a little bit of artificial lighting with a different hue, because like light in cars they are usually much brighter, or much like the temperature is colder, so this would make a nice differentiation between the building and this part of the image. So yeah, that would be it, I think. But the overall image is really, really nice. So it's just like details like that will, I think, take it to the next level. So yep, hopefully you've learned interesting tips, and next time you'll check all the horizons and all the basics like that so that you're sure your image is physically accurate, and that will be great. I'll see you in the next teardown, guys. Bye.
Schneider. New